that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell. Okie doke. I get up every day early. Today I was up at about 4 o'clock, gathering news and putting it together. Write a synopsis for each piece of news that I find that's interesting. Attach a link to that, and put them together at a blog called geoharvey.wordpress.com. And you can go and visit it and see what's going on. And if you hit it and hit the calendar for the dates that we talk about, you can actually get links to the articles.
And for those of us who want to see what I look like, hi.
That's Tom, the famous Tom Fennell, a world traveler, an expert on transmission lines. You're a transmission line expert.
Well, I know a little bit about them.
I never
worked with transmission lines, though.
I thought you did
cables.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Cables.
Underground transmission.
Underground transmission. Okay.
Did that, yeah.
Yeah, and underwater.
And underwater.
Yeah, well, we have a nice picture of some underwater equipment.
Yeah, we do.
This is cool stuff. Okay, so we're starting with Thursday, May 5th. I have to take my glasses off because I don't see with my glasses on, which is why I wear them on the street. Okay.
Isn't that kind of backwards?
It's backwards, but you know, life is backwards, so what can you say? Okay, we're starting with a piece from the BBC that people in this country didn't see very much. This is May 5th. And let's get this picture up.
We've got a nice picture up here.
This is a picture of Fort McMurray in Canada. That is not a sunset, ladies and gentlemen. That is a fire.
That's fire, isn't it? It's a beautiful picture.
It's a beautiful picture. It's an ugly fire.
Very tragic.
A fire has forced evacuation of all 88,000 residents of Fort McMurray, Alberta. The fire, which broke out on Sunday, was in the heart of the country's oil sands region, and by the way, it knocked out about a third of Canadian oil production for a long period because the pipelines go through this. Mm-hmm. And
it's not affecting directly
the
oil sands, but they could catch on fire.
They could, and in fact, the fire almost came to one of them. It stopped right at the edge. It had, in the first few days, gutted 1,600 buildings, including a new school. High temperatures were behind this. High temperatures on the 1st of May in northern Alberta, it was 90 degrees.
That's just what I was going to say.
According
to the Weather Channel, high temperature was 32 degrees.
Yeah, 32
which translates to 90 American.
Yeah.
Breaking the old record of 82 degrees.
So this was 8 degrees hotter than the old record.
The old record, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is May.
It's May.
I mean, we're getting 70 down here. They're running at 90.
Yeah, and
How crazy.
The weather people are saying part of the reason for this is El Nino, but El Nino comes every few years, and you don't get 90 degrees when the old record is 82 every few years. Part of this is climate change.
Well, that's one of the takeaways I got here. One of the consequences of climate change will be a greater prevalence of extreme weather events around the world.
Right.
And it's happening up there right now.
It's happening right now. They say that it'll take months to put this fire out. And we will be visiting this fire again in the course of this program. There were bad fires.
How big it is, just to get an idea, it's 40 square miles.
It's bigger than 40 square miles.
It was 40 square miles when they wrote this.
When they wrote that article, it's gone up to about 640 now. Square miles. Yeah, it's about 2/3 the size of Rhode Island.
Okay, when this article was written, it was the size of Manhattan.
Bad one, and it's done things like jump fire breaks that were a kilometer across or close to a kilometer across. It got stopped by fire breaks at some of the oil facilities. It actually got to the oil facilities and then got stopped by the combination of fire breaks and the firemen who stayed on at those things when everybody else was evacuated. And at the time this article was published on May 5th, there were 100 firemen on the ground fighting a fire that had already destroyed 1,600 buildings. This does not sound like a time that they were able to get any rest.
No, not at all.
And initially it was going to take 2 days to get anybody to help them. But we'll get back to this.
The only thing that's going to really save it is a good rainstorm.
Yeah, when is that going to happen?
One thing I would mention, these weather conditions that created the conditions for this fire prevail all over northern Alberta and northern Saskatchewan.
Yeah, well,
so it could happen in
anywhere.
other places at once.
Right, and
right
it's
now.
actually, there's another big fire going on in Saskatchewan right now. Okay. And there were big fires last year in Saskatchewan and the Yukon, Alaska, British Columbia. So the Canadians are having a lot of problems with fires, and those problems are almost certainly driven by climate change. The same thing happened in Australia during the last Australian summer, which was our winter, only a few months ago. So we have to move on.
Well,
our next item is from Clean Technica. What's that, Tom?
Oh, kids win another climate change lawsuit.
Yeah.
We touched base on this, but it's a different bunch of kids.
It's a different bunch of kids with a different lawsuit. And I just lost there it is. Superior Court judge in the state of Washington ruled in favor of 7 young plaintiffs who brought suit on climate change. He ordered the state's Department of Ecology to promulgate an emissions reduction rule during 2016 and bring the recommendations to the state legislature in 2017. And they are going to do this everywhere.
Well, the organization behind it, I never heard of them, is called Our Children's Trust.
Right.
And their mission, according to this, is to elevate, quote, the voice of youth to secure the legal right to a healthy atmosphere and stable climate.
Who has a right to a healthy atmosphere?
And stable climate for the benefit of all present and future generations.
Right.
And this Our Children's Trust outfit is preparing lawsuits all over the place.
All over the place.
And they are the ones that are responsible for that one we talked about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Which was also kids, older kids.
Yeah.
They're up to 19 or something like that.
Yep, that's right. And these are, the picture that I saw made it look like these kids, some of them were
pretty young.
Pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, more on that? Should we move on?
We can move on, yeah.
Okay, our next one is from Reuters. What's that, Tom?
Oh, this is Dynegy. That's the name of a company.
Yep.
Dynegy to shut money-losing Illinois coal power units.
How about that? Dynegy Inc. will shut down 3 coal-fired units at 2 Illinois power plants because they are no longer economical in the Midwestern power market. The Houston-based electric utility said the 3 units together have over 1,800 megawatts of capacity, and they're about 30% of the total power generated in southern Illinois. That's about 3...
And what's happening here is they are failing to recover their operating costs.
Yeah.
So the company said,
yeah,
we're going to walk away from this.
And guess what? The price of coal is about as low as it's been in the last, I don't know how many years.
Interesting takeaway here that the Sierra Club is the motivating factor behind this.
Oh?
Yeah, they're the ones, the utility's denying it, but the Sierra Club is raising awareness about all of this stuff. And
yeah.
I mean, they probably would have closed these plants anyhow, but they don't want anybody to know about it.
So the Sierra Club is making sure everybody knows about it. Yep.
And what they're saying here, this is the Sierra Club talking, this is a result of years of advocacy to make the coal industry internalize all its costs. Duh!
Okay. Why should we pay for the costs that we're throwing at everybody else?
Well, it's a good business model.
It's a good business.
Pocket the profits and externalize the costs.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Incidentally, in case anybody is wondering, what are the external costs? According to the World Health Organization, the cost to the United States for medical problems associated with air pollution, almost all of which come from the fossil fuels industry, is $250 billion a year, or about $680 per person. So if you were in a family of 4, it's costing your family $2,720 per year on average. And that is mostly...
And you're paying it whether you want to or not. It's not even a tax.
The only way you can get out of it...
every time you go to the hospital. What's an aspirin cost at a hospital?
I don't know, but you pay for this unless you can meet 3 qualifications. First, you don't pay taxes. Second, you don't pay medical insurance. And third, nobody in your family ever gets sick.
Okay.
And by the way, fourth, you don't die.
And that's just the medical costs.
That's just the medical costs.
There's other costs.
Associated with pollution.
We haven't done much in the way of mountaintop mining, but that's horrible.
500 mountaintops have been removed.
And what they do with them, if we got to do a show on that.
We could do it.
Bring some pictures down of what they're doing to these beautiful valleys like in Vermont.
Yeah.
You go around a corner and you see like a war zone.
Yeah. The valley is all of a sudden filled with broken rocks.
And trees.
And the broken rocks are taller than the trees are. Yeah. So, the valley is permanently filled. The stream that runs through it is really permanently polluted because you're going to be washing dust off those rocks for the next 1,000 years. It's sad, but that's what we do to people.
Quite a while ago, I was down there visiting coal mines. I was down in Harlan, Kentucky.
Yeah.
And I stayed in a Holiday Inn that was up on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
We went up there at night, got up early in the morning, and the valley had filled with fog. And you could see the mountaintops sticking out of the fog at the top, and it looked like a lake with islands.
Yes.
But the interesting thing was about half of these mountains were buttes.
Yes.
And I didn't know they had buttes in Kentucky.
Yeah, well, they didn't have buttes in Kentucky.
My associate there said they're not buttes. They cut the tops off the mountains to get coal.
To get to the coal, yeah, which is cheaper than hiring a whole bunch of people to dig. You just blow the top off and you've got the coal, you pick it up and you go away.
Instead of 200 people, 200 jobs in a mine, you have 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Worked well.
And now, you see, now that we're switching to wind power, those 7 people are going to be out of work. But of course, there's going to be about 42 jobs for them in the wind industry. Okay.
Well, let's move along to Friday, May 6th.
Friday, May 6th. And
Arizona solar storage trial gets 2 10-megawatt systems for the price of 1.
Yeah. And we have a picture associated with that. The Tucson Electric Power has received approval from the state's regulator to build 2 10-megawatt energy storage systems, including one co-located with solar. The utility had originally sought bids on 1 system, but the bids were so low that 2 projects could be put up within their budget. This is from PV Tech.
This is amazing.
They're buying batteries at half price, and they didn't even have a sale to attract them to this. They went out because they needed 10 megawatts of storage, and they got 20 for the price they expected to pay.
There's 2 companies involved here.
E.ON is one.
and E.ON, German companies.
Yep.
Dusseldorf. You can say it better than I can.
Dusseldorf. It's basically the way
It's one of the world's largest investor-owned electric utility service providers.
That's right. It is.
And they're building one of these two systems, and the other one is an American firm called Next Era Energy Resources.
Yep.
And they're also kind of a holding company. They're a wholesale electricity supplier in the U.S.
Yeah. And so, there it is. That was from PV Tech. Our next one is from Renewable Energy Magazine. And what do we got for a title on that?
Dum dum. Trump vows U.S. return to coal.
Oh, you can tell this guy is a Wharton graduate, can't you? This is a man who got a degree from Wharton. We should all call up Wharton. And Wharton School of Business is supposed to be right up there with Harvard School of Business as one of the probably 2 or 3
it's
best
highly rated.
Highly rated. And they have given him a degree. And here is a guy who says, let's go and manufacture buggy whips for a living. Now, this is the same guy who said, we don't have to worry about default. We just print money.
Well, this plays well in Appalachia.
Yeah, it plays well in Appalachia.
But it isn't going to happen.
It isn't going to happen, no. I mean, the coal, are you kidding me? The last indication that I've seen, they have had 3 megawatts. 3 megawatts, about a quarter of what we would need to power Brattleboro. 3 megawatts of coal burning plants put on nationwide in the last 15 months.
I know some people got more than 3 megawatts of solar on their houses.
No.
Oh, no.
Megawatts.
Sorry about that.
But I've known...
Okay, so the one they're talking about up at our landfill is 5 megawatts.
Yeah, so we're talking about putting up a thing that would have, even counting in the capacity factor, there are plenty of low capacity factor solar. There are plenty of examples.
There is more than 3 megawatts of solar in Brattleboro right now.
Yes. And you know, even as I was saying, even counting in the low capacity factor of solar and the high capacity factor of coal, there are plenty of examples of solar farms bigger bigger in terms of their
What are some
output.
Big ones? Some big ones out west.
Yeah, absolutely.
As for Trump and coal, the candidate has not said definitively what he would do to increase mining jobs in the U.S.
The very fact that this guy could be the Republican nominee,
he's telling people where he's saying this stuff, what they want to hear.
That's right. I spent almost my entire life as a conservative Republican, and I have absolutely abandoned that position for the simple reason that the position that I took, the Republican Party walked away from.
Yeah.
And you know who's closest to it right now, to my conservative Republican position? Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, has a party, you know, his platform is basically an upgrade of Theodore Roosevelt's. So,
well, you know, I looked up the Progressive Party platform.
Yeah.
And it is.
There it is. Go to Wikipedia. They find the article on the Progressive Party platform from 1912. It's easy to find, and you can actually read the platform. It's only about 12 pages long, and it's fun because, you know, you're sitting there thinking, if Bernie were alive in 1912, this is what he would have said. And I have no doubt of that.
Absolutely.
I say that to friends of mine who say, yeah, Theodore Roosevelt, the good Roosevelt, and I'm sitting there saying, yeah? Why don't you read this? And they say, no.
We got another one here. This is
from Clean Technica?
Yeah.
Okay, what's that?
More than 150 companies now signed up to Science-Based Targets Initiative. We'll have to explain a little bit what that is. But,
imagine that.
Read what you got to read. And
the State-Based Targets Initiative said 155 companies have committed to set emissions reduction targets in line with attempting to keep global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius. Companies include Coca-Cola, Dell, Kellogg, NRG Energy, Procter & Gamble owns Corning, Toyota, and more and more and more and more, because there's 155 of them.
Well, I had not heard of this Science-Based Targets Initiative, so I looked them up.
Yeah.
And they are a global partnership providing technical resources to help companies set science-based emissions targets that are approved by external, credible experts, verified through relevant scientific methodology. So it's pretty solid.
Yeah, it is. And you know, maybe I should repeat that thing that I come up with every once in a while about the percentage of scientists who you know, I've said this before in this show, but there are lots of people out there who haven't heard it. You remember that President Obama said 97%. This is a very often quoted figure. 97% of scientists who are in the business, who had published, said human-caused climate change is happening.
So that automatically implies 3% saying it's not happening.
Yeah, and
that
actually,
isn't the truth.
Yeah, and somebody at the time that was done, they went through a list of 6,000 scientists and found one who disagreed, said it isn't happening, and they looked at his paper, and right in the introduction it said, I'm really happy to tell you that climate change isn't happening, because if it is, it will destroy the economy of my country. What country? Russia.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Koch Industries, ExxonMobil, Chevron, the Republican Party, and Russia are all rowing the same boat in the same direction. And I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute, what happened here? Now, we've got Obama quoted the thing, MSNBC and other organizations tried out, okay, who is saying the opposite? MSNBC researched almost 70,000 scientists who had published in climatology and meteorology publications and found that out of those 70,000, 4 said it isn't happening. And I'm not saying 4,000 here, I'm saying 4.
But the entire Republican Party is saying it isn't happening.
I'm looking at this and I say, I would expect more than 4 positive responses if I went to 70,000 physicists and said, is it true that you believe you are the reincarnation of Isaac Newton? So I've said
well,
my...
you are.
I've said my say on that one. We're up to Saturday, May 7th.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one here. We got a picture for it.
Oh, we do indeed.
Bring that picture up.
Let's bring the picture up. There you go.
Well, I think that's Miami Beach.
It sure looks like it.
And boy, what a precarious position. They got the ocean on one side and the lagoon on the other.
Yeah.
Well, the article says that Florida mayors rush to prepare for rising seas.
2 Florida mayors are unique in positions for local leaders. They both believe that climate change is occurring and that the consequences will hit Florida residents hard. That puts them at odds with the state government, which fervently denies that climate change is occurring. I don't know how they can deny it. They've banned the term.
Well, it's already happening.
It's not progress.
They're getting sunny day floods in Miami Beach. From the ocean, now.
What do you say about this? We've got the federal government paying out tens of millions of dollars to relocate people from towns that have been permanently flooded.
In Alaska.
In Alaska and in Louisiana.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And so,
in the Marshall Islands, too. We're going to talk about that later.
Wow, what is going on here? And today I was reading about the same thing in Ghana. And you know, I mean, it's happening. It's happening, guys. This is guys and girls, by the way. When I say guys, I mean girls too. It's like you guys. You walk into a room full of women and you say you guys.
The 2 mayors they're talking about there is Carlos Jimenez, who's the mayor of Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
Which is the most...
Not trivial.
No, this is the most populous county in Florida.
Yep.
And the 7th most populous county in the United States. There's a lot of people there.
Yep.
And Cindy Lerner, she's the mayor of the village of Pinecrest, which is within Miami-Dade County, but it's independent of Mr. Jimenez.
Yeah.
And she's quite a piece of work there. She went up to New Hampshire.
Yes.
During the primaries to confront Rubio and Jeb Bush about climate change. And it's interesting because Bush responded favorably.
Yeah.
But Rubio didn't. Rubio kind of dumped on her.
Yeah. How can you possibly admit that climate change is happening when so many organizations are putting so much money into your campaign to make sure that you understand?
Well, her takeaway is interesting. This is a quote. When you can demonstrate and see like we see what's going on in Florida, you can't stand there with a straight face and say there's no problem when sunny day flooding is occurring.
Yeah.
The reality exists, the public knows it exists, and anyone says it otherwise is just a shill for fossil fuel interests.
Like?
She hit him right between the eyes.
Right. Like, does the article say what party she's in?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
Well, it might have.
I didn't
it might
remember.
have. I don't have it here, but
I didn't remember. Anyway.
I would bet she's not a Republican.
Okay. Now we're back to Alberta. BBC again.
Yeah, we got another one
U.S.
here.
Media having ignored this to a very large extent. By the way, the smoke from this fire has already reached the Gulf of Mexico.
Has it really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and apparently you can actually see it. You can see it from space reaching the Gulf of Mexico. You can see it with your eyes in parts of the Midwest. I would guess if the wind blows
in the right direction, we're going
to get it. There's no question about it. We will get this smoke. The only, you read the title.
Well, a blaze disrupts a convoy.
Oh, man.
Near Fort McMurray.
Oh, man. Okay, let's put this guy to bed.
This was kind of scary.
Okay, let me get rid of that. Okay, there we go. And the only only land convoy evacuating people trapped by huge wildfires in the Canadian state of Alberta has been suspended after 200-foot high flames, 60 meters, flanked the road, officials say. There is also concern about oil fields, particularly near Nexon's Long Lake oil extraction site. This is in the BBC, and that was the site where the fire got right up to their fire break.
On this site, and I would advise you to look at it.
Yep.
There is a video.
Oh.
That was taken by a surveillance camera in a home. Everybody split, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Know? But the fire is spreading through the living room.
Right.
And you can just see it. You can see the smoke filling the room.
Yep.
You can see the flames over here.
Yep.
Then the lights go out.
Yep.
Oh, this is scary.
Well, the thing that's really scary, and it's not on my geoharvey.wordpress.com website, but all you've got to do is go to Google or one of the other search engines and look for videos of evacuation.
Look for BBC. It's on the BBC website about.
But just look for videos relating to the fire in Fort McMurray. 88,000 people had to evacuate, and there's only
that's as of this week.
One road going north and one road going south. Everybody had to be on one of those two roads. If you go north, the nearest town was 25 miles away, as I recall. Might be wrong about that, Fort McKay. And Fort McKay had a population of 550, so they didn't have any real ability to accommodate the 25,000 people who showed up.
Well, apparently the only place many of these people are finding shelter is in the oil worker camps.
Yeah, and what happened was people went to a town called Anzac,
okay,
and which was named after the Second World War.
Australia, New Zealand, and Canada.
That's right.
These were the soldiers.
Soldiers.
In World Wars I and II.
1 and 2.
And it was they took a lot of abuse in World War I.
They sure did, absolutely. But and many of them were trained in that area. That's why it was named after them.
Okay.
But the people fled to Anzac, and then there was an evacuation of Anzac, so they had to flee again. And they had to go hundreds of miles to get to a place that could accommodate them, which was Edmonton. And the people who fled north had to be airlifted out. There was no airport they could get to. And the people driving out of this thing, the videos that are online, look like a thriller movie. I mentioned that earlier. Fires on both sides of the road as the people are driving through it. It just absolutely mind-boggling.
Your heart up in your throat.
Oh man!
Wow.
And the amazing thing, 2 people died in a traffic accident.
Yeah. Nobody's died.
Nobody else that they know
wood.
of. Wow.
This is wood too.
This fire is they say is going to take months to put out. Okay.
And they're going to need rain.
They need rain.
They definitely need rain.
They need rain to put it out.
Well, without rainfall, the officials predict that it could be weeks and weeks before the fire is completely out.
It could be. Last year, the fires they had, which were early in the summer, they said, we expect these fires to burn until snow comes.
Wow.
And this could happen also in Alberta. Again, the El Nino is a problem. Part of the problem?
Part of the problem.
Climate change is almost certainly part of I think it's safe to say.
It's also part of the problem.
When you're breaking records of temperatures by 8 degrees beyond what anything El Nino has ever brought in the past, climate change. And this is consistent with what happened last year when El Nino was not part of the problem. Okay.
We got a picture here.
We are up to a picture. And this next item is from today's Energy Solutions. What do you call it, Tom?
China's wind power capacity to reach 495 gigawatts by 2030. Why didn't they just say 500?
Yeah.
By 2030.
Yeah, well,
they're going to beat that.
Yeah, I think they probably will, based on earlier projections. Installed wind power capacity in China will more than treble from the current 149 gigawatts in 2015 to over 495 gigawatts by 2030, a compound annual growth rate of 9%. According to research and consulting firm Global Data, China has a third of the total world wind power capacity in 2015, more than the United States has. This is from today's Energy Solutions. And by the way, 495 gigawatts of wind is approximately equal to about
Yankee.
Gigawatts.
1,000 Yankee.
Yeah, when you take into account capacity factor, this is the equivalent of about 160, 170, 180 modern nuclear reactors.
Okay.
It's a lot. It's a lot. No wonder the Chinese are saying, why don't we just string wires to the whole rest of the world and have a worldwide internet, worldwide
something like that could actually
system.
happen in the future. We have the technology now.
We've got the technology, no question.
But China has the highest wind power globally by far, as we just mentioned. You want to guess who's second?
The United States? Yeah.
And we got 17% of the global share.
Which means
I'm surprised.
We've got about half what they do.
Yeah, but I'm really still surprised because we don't have any offshore, and that's where
that's where the big stuff is developing. But we will have offshore soon.
It's going to make sense economically.
The turbines are being put up now, and the United States. This is this thing that really boggles my mind about conservatives who are denying that climate change is a problem and putting down wind power and renewable power in general. The Chinese are setting themselves up for energy independence. They're stopping imports of coal, and they are setting themselves up for resilience. And the United States is saying, no, we can continue buying petroleum from Canada, which has just shut down a third of its oil, and other places. We don't have to worry about that. Climate change, it isn't happening. And the Pentagon goes to the Congress of the United States year after year after year and says our biggest problem is climate change. And the Congress has a party that is basically in charge of it that says, oh, we don't, it's like the monkeys with their see no evil, hear no evil.
Well, the Department of Defense, I think, as an entity, is the largest consumer of fuels in America.
Yep, and the Republican Party wanted to make sure that they kept buying oil.
Yeah.
And the Defense Department is saying we need to have solar power out in the field so that our soldiers who are guarding those oil convoys don't get killed.
Yeah.
We're talking about troops getting killed in the field here.
Well, they need oil out in the field. How do they get there? Truck convoys.
Truck convoys. If they have solar out in the field, they don't need the oil, you don't need the truck convoys. And the convoys that you've got more soldiers to protect them. Okay, we're up to Sunday, May 8th.
Well, this is dams on the Kali River, which is in India, likely to dry up by June.
Yep.
It's almost June now.
Almost June. And the Kali River, I should point out, there's 3 or 4 rivers at least in China, in India rather, called the Kali River. And this one is in Karnataka, which is a state kind of in the southwest. I would have expected it to be in Nepal, but
we got a picture here that I got to
Yeah, you can bring the picture up. How about that? That's the Kali River.
The Kali River. Looks kind of pretty.
It does. The failure of monsoon last year led to declining water levels at dams across the River Kali in the Indian state of Karnataka. If there is no rain by June, the reservoirs are likely to dry up completely, with effects on power generation at both hydroelectric and nuclear plants. And it'll not just be hydroelectric and nuclear, it'll be any thermal power plant, which includes natural gas and coal.
Because they use water for cooling.
Yeah, everybody who uses water for cooling is going to have to go out of business while this thing waits to fill up. And so that means that the only things they can rely on really are wind and solar and, things like biomass. This is from the Times of India, by the way.
We talked a lot about what was going on in India, but I don't think it's happening in that part of India. These solar initiatives and stuff like that they're building.
The big solar initiatives are in the north, yeah. They've got to get something going in this part of India, but the fact of the matter is, they can put it, as you know, solar power can be put in almost overnight. And, batteries can just be wheeled in on trucks. So and we're starting to see trucks that can wheel them in that are powered by batteries. What can you say? Oh,
this is an interesting one coming up.
Okay, this is from Forbes.
Mexico's energy auction reveals the true price of U.S. renewables.
Yeah, former U.S. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu commented...
That's our guy.
That's our guy. On energy auctions in Mexico, which are unsubsidized. Mexico's state utility got bids on solar, wind, hydro, cogeneration, and combined cycle gas and geothermal. Solar and wind power each cost about 4 cents per kilowatt hour, which is far below the cost of any fossil fuels. This is 4 cents per kilowatt hour, wholesale, unsupported by any
well, this is what Chu basically said.
Subsidies.
This is a quote. If you want to know the true price of renewable energy in America, free from subsidies and mandates, look to Mexico.
Yep.
4 to 4.5 cents with no production tax credit, no investment tax credit, no renewable portfolio standard. It's just money, including profit.
Yeah.
So
okay. So this brings us to the question of what's happening in the free market, the so-called free market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this free market has got its shills who talk about how expensive solar and wind are and how horrible they are in every respect. And of course, all they're trying to do is keep their money going through the fossil fuel industry.
This guy Chu's pretty much on top of things. He's talking about 2 other things in addition to this.
Yeah.
That we got to be investing in.
Which are?
Carbon capture and storage.
I don't believe
and
it.
Batteries.
Batteries, I do believe. Carbon capture and storage, I think, is a fruitless game. You got to store that someplace, and if you're going to store it as CO2, it's going to leak.
They got to make a breakthrough. CO2 isn't going to work.
No.
Calcium carbonate might.
Calcium carbonate might, but you've got to get calcium to do it.
Yeah.
And getting the calcium to do it is going to cost money and take energy. This is why I don't think it's really going to work. Now, there are things that you can do. You can use carbon dioxide, aside from using it for making soda pop. You can use carbon dioxide for making various chemicals. And if they could do that, if they could take the carbon dioxide and turn it into plastics, then they can use the plastics until they're used up, put them in a landfill, and sequester the carbon dioxide in landfills.
Exactly that.
They're indeed. Absolutely.
They're kind of doing everything backwards. We burn the carbon dioxide. We burn the carbon to make carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Now they're using alternative sources of energy, such as solar.
Yep.
To distill water. Not distill. What's the right word? Break it down.
To.
Oh, you want to put me up there?
I want to put you up there. There you go. You're talking. People should see you, Tom.
Okay, so they're turning water back into hydrogen and oxygen, combining it with the CO2.
Right.
To get the carbon back out.
Right. Electrolysis.
Electrolysis. Yeah, electrolysis.
That's right.
And then with the carbon being back out, they can make anything they can make that we use that's made out of fossil fuels.
Absolutely.
Like plastic.
Like plastics. And you can send your plastics to landfills. If you can find a landfill, you can send your plastics to it and sequester your plastics in the landfill. So there you go.
Yeah.
We're up to Monday, May 9th.
Up to Monday.
How about that? And we have a nice picture here.
Yeah, we got a
beautiful picture of a village in the Solomon Islands. This is a territory, this is where Guadalcanal is. It's not that village, but this is where Americans fought and died during the Second World War, won a lot of congressional medals of honor and so forth.
Well, the Solomon Islands, of course, they're in the ocean, north of Australia and east of New Guinea.
Yep.
And then beyond them, these are Australian possessions, but beyond them is the Marshall Islands, which is U.S. possessions. And the same thing's happening.
Yeah, Solomons are they're independent. They may be protected by the Australians.
I think they're a protectorate. Yeah. I think technically you're right, but the Australians are sitting there controlling them.
This is from the Washington Post. What's the title?
Why some of the Solomon Islands have disappeared.
Yes, why some of them have disappeared. What? Okay, after the Pacific Ocean swallows villages and 5 Solomon Islands, a study blames climate change. In a recent paper in the Journal of Environmental Research Letters, scientists link destructive sea level rise to anthropogenic or human-caused climate change. And that village, if you want to visit it, and you better check and make sure it's still there, because it might not be. They have been evacuating villages like that one because the seas are rising.
As the ocean rose, they had to flee.
They had to move out. They had, in some of these villages, they had put those houses up on stilts. If you look closely, you can see that. And the houses are on stilts because the ocean rises occasionally to cover the land. But in these cases, the houses were just kind of permanently
Well, some of these islands,
over
they
water.
were volcanically created.
Yep.
So they have a hill.
Yeah.
And everybody's moving to the hill.
Yeah.
And the beach is disappearing.
The beach is disappearing. And the jungle is one day going to turn back into beach. Okay. That's sad, but it's reality.
It's reality.
Although there are people who are denying that it's reality, or they're saying this is just part of normal natural
Climate
stuff.
changes all the time.
Yeah, climate changes all the time, or it's not happening at all, or it doesn't matter. We can lose Florida. That's okay.
Well,
so
sell your condo in Miami Beach right now while you still can.
I have a friend who was in Florida and told me that driving down a highway along the beach, a person in the car said, "You see all these mansions?
Mm-hmm. They're vacant.
They're vacant.
Yeah, can't be sold.
You can buy one if you buy it for cash and are willing to have a mansion that has no insurance on it.
Yep.
But you can't get a mortgage because you can't get insurance because it's too close to the sea. And, it's all very sad, but it
in this
happens to
particular
be
case,
real.
the people who are suffering can afford it.
Tom, I know, but, I told you about seeing the movie The Big Short and reading the book.
Yeah.
All right, The Big Short was about the mortgage meltdown, and at the end of The Big Short, the guy who shorted the mortgage bond market says, and he actually says this a couple of times during the movie, when all is said and done, it's really terrible what's happening to these banks that are closing and things like that. But when all is said and done, the people who are going to pay for this are ordinary working people. And when we get to pointing the finger at somebody, the bankers who caused this are not going to have the finger pointing at them. They're not going to suffer. They're going to point the finger at poor people and immigrants. Thank you, Donald Trump. Poor people and immigrants.
Yeah.
Remember, you're linked together. If you're poor, you are linked to the immigrants. He's going to want to kick you out of the country. Well, maybe not, but he changes his mind every couple of hours, couple of minutes. Okay.
Let's move to Sioux City.
Sioux City Journal.
The EPA chief, this is a quote, U.S. quickly phasing out coal for clean energy.
Oh, man. Coal is... How Donald Trump could imagine that he can resuscitate the coal industry. If he's actually telling people that, he's just telling them lies.
Well, it's playing well in Appalachia. I mean, this is a politician.
Yeah.
He's telling the people what they want to hear.
What they want to hear, and he has no idea how he's going to deliver on this.
I don't think he even cares.
No. The top official at the U.S. EPA said the ongoing legal fight over regulating carbon emissions from coal-fired power plants won't delay the nation's accelerating shift to cleaner sources of energy. She spoke at the Climate Action 16 conference in Washington, D.C. And, the problem that we've got is that, you've said this several times. Given the low cost of solar and wind power, there's no fossil fuels are competitive, even if they deliver their power using fuels that are free.
Well, I didn't say it exactly that way, but yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I said in a few more years they're going to look back here and say, they used to actually pay for their power.
Yeah, well, we're already at a point where electrical power is being given away by utilities if people will take it from wind power.
We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Woo!
Yeah.
How do you compete with when you have to pay for coal, for digging it, for transporting it, and you have to deal with the emissions? How do you compete with the wind, which is free? You don't.
You can't.
You can't. And anybody who thinks that you can is silly. Anyway,
Well,
that was the Sioux City Journal.
EPA administrator is called Gina McCarthy.
Right.
And she's got to figure out a pulse there. She's the United States, she's saying, we will absolutely meet our obligations to cut carbon emissions.
Yeah, for really good reasons. This has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with the clean power plan. They can kill the clean power plan, and we're still going to meet those targets because coal is too expensive and natural gas is too expensive.
Market forces are already phasing out burning coal to generate electricity.
Yep, that's right.
As emissions-free wind turbines and solar panels plummet in cost.
Plummet. And we just saw that in Mexico, 4 cents per kilowatt hour. How does natural gas compete with 4 cents per kilowatt hour? The answer is it doesn't. and in the United States, I've seen prices for wind power at 1.5 cents plus the subsidy, brings it up to still less than 4 cents, and solar power at below 4 cents.
And it's going to get better.
And it's getting better. How do anybody who thinks that they can resuscitate the coal industry, or for that matter, the natural gas industry, when that goes into its big decline?
Well, that's going to be around for a while.
Natural gas is going to be around for a while, but, we've put on, I forget, in the first 3 months of this year, 1.4% of our new energy production capacity, our generating capacity, is powered by natural gas. 1.4%. 0% by nuclear, 0% by oil, 0% by coal, 1.4% by natural gas, and the rest...
And this is all due to economics.
That's due to economics. And if you count small-scale solar, which the Federal Energy Management, what is it, FERC? FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, they don't count small-scale, which is 40% of the solar market, which means that natural gas actually was about 1.1%, and solar, interestingly, when you just say, okay, rule of thumb, we're going to say that 40% of the solar that was installed was not counted. If you do the math on that, it turns out that solar was 55% of the installation. Solar.
Portent of things to come.
Oh, man. Okay,
well,
now we've got a picture here. This is not a tank, although it looks like a tank.
It looks like a tank.
This is from Renews.
You gave me a link on this, and I got some more information.
Oh, these things are beautiful, aren't they?
What a machine.
What a machine.
I want one.
Yeah. Well, this is a T3200.
It's called Boom Time for Deep Ocean.
Oh, man.
And that's well, as it says in the picture, it's the T3200.
Yep. Deep Ocean 1 UK has contracted SMD, which is the name of a company, to deliver a mechanical cutting boom and cable handling system for its T3200 tracked trenching vehicle. The combining simultaneous mechanical and jet trenching, it enables protection of submarine power cables in rock and other hard ground areas. And it's called a T3200 because it's a trenching tool, and it is 3,200 horsepower.
Yeah. That's right. I can't conceive of 3,200 horsepower.
Underwater. And this is I spent some time trying to figure out, is this thing robotic or is it manned? And I'm sure it's robotic.
You think it's all robotic?
I can't imagine that there's anybody in that thing. There's no windows, for one thing.
Well, you'd have to have a breathing apparatus.
Well, you could, but if you're not going to have any reason to see out of it, you might as well just do it robotically.
Well, not all of these cables are trenched.
Yes, that's right.
Some of them just laid on a shipboard.
Yeah.
But when I was involved in submarine cables, we had stuff like this. But it was only about a tenth of the size of this.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
basically what we had was a farm tractor, underwater
Yes.
farm tractor.
Underwater farm tractor. Great image.
Yeah, this one, it says, talking about the cutting boom, it's twice as powerful and it will deliver double the torque of any other comparable subsea trenching asset in the industry. This is a major development.
Did you happen to see the diameter of cable this would handle?
No, I didn't.
It seems to me that I don't remember what it was, but it seems to me that it was something like 60 centimeters. Is that possible?
60 centimeters. Now, a centimeter is about 4 inches?
No, it's about, there's 2.5 centimeters to an inch.
2.5.
60 centimeters is 6/10 of a meter. So it's going to be about 24, it's going to be about 2 feet.
I'd be very surprised. I mean, the cables we were working with, a big cable was about 5-6 inches.
Yeah, well, this thing can handle big cables.
Well,
I can
they
tell
would
you
be.
that.
By the way, most of the cables we're talking about here are communication cables.
Yes.
There's some power cables being installed, and some big ones too.
Yeah.
But mostly these guys are communication cables.
Well, this particular thing is going to be used for offshore wind power.
Okay.
And
well, it's going to be used for whatever they want to use it for.
Yes, that's true.
But offshore wind power right now is a burgeoning market. So.
Yep.
And they need submarine cables.
Yep.
You're not going to have transmission lines out there in the ocean.
Yep. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, May 10th.
Okay,
And this is from ICIS.
Well, it says renewables peak at 95% of German electricity demand.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. According to
there's actually two parts to this, but we'll
get to it.
Approach them.
According to calculation by Agora Energiewende, due to the weather conditions on Sunday, May 8th, renewable energy generation in Germany reached a new high. At 11 a.m. local time, renewables covered a record 95% of the country's electricity consumption. This according to PV Magazine. And the other part that Tom referred to, and I should have said PV Magazine.
Let's touch base here, because why this happened. At 11 a.m., the sun was shining bright for most of the German territory.
Yep.
The wind was strong as well.
Yeah.
And at 11 a.m. on Sunday, biomass power plants added another 5.25 gigawatts.
Gigawatts, okay.
Okay, and just as hydropower reached a total of about 2.75 gigawatts. So everything hit at once.
Yes. And that happens every once in a while. But this was anticipated.
They knew it was coming.
They knew it was coming. So this is the part from ICIS. That part was from PV Magazine. Also anticipating this, the day before, day-ahead spot prices went to minus 130.09 euros per megawatt hour, or minus
so it's
100.
15 cents.
Yeah, $147.94 per megawatt hour. Approximately minus 15 cents per kilowatt hour.
So they're paying people to take the power.
Yeah, well, they're
Buy
not.
your batteries now, guys.
Yeah, right. They're not paying ordinary people this because Germany has very high power rates because they've got high taxes, but on power. But the wholesale market just went berserk on this, and it meant that they had to get rid of that power, and they were shipping it to anybody who would take it. And you can bet your bottom dollar that some of it went to Poland, and some of it went to Austria, and some of it went to the Czech Republic, which I think is starting to be called Czechia.
Is it really?
I think so.
Heard that
I've heard that, and some of it probably went to France. So this is a sign of the times. And by the way, in case anybody's interested, there are 2 German states out of their 16 that are at 100% or over their regular power consumption being met by renewable energy.
I think we've discussed that.
We have discussed it.
We've discussed that.
They're Schleswig-Holstein and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern.
Yeah.
Which Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is in the northernmost state in what used to be East Germany.
Okay.
And they're in a power grid called 50 Hertz, which is, the CEO is a man named Boris Schucht. And Boris Schucht said that he believed that 50 Hertz could take 70% of its capacity from solar and wind power without any storage needed at all.
That's it. I think we talked about something about that.
Yeah, we talked about that in the past. Okay.
Now let's move back to Vermont.
If we move back to Vermont, RTO Insider.
Vermont Green Line developers. Now that green line means something. Okay, it's something specific.
Okay.
Seek New York permit.
Yep. Anbaric Transmission and National Grid filed with the New York's Public Service Commission for a permit for an extension of their Vermont Green Line. The project would connect 400 megawatts of New York wind generation to Vermont through lines under Lake Champlain. 400 megawatts is a lot of power.
140 turbines.
140 turbines.
What's happening here is upstate New York,
right.
The northeast corner of upstate New York is very windy.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of that wind from the Great Lakes.
Right.
Just coming right down to St. Lawrence Valley.
Yeah.
So somebody saw this and said, we're going to build a bunch of turbines. And then they're saying, well, what are we going to do with the power?
Yeah.
Well, we'll ship it to Vermont.
There you go.
This is also interesting because we've talked about the lines under Lake Champlain.
Right.
And they're running north-south.
Right.
These lines are running east-west.
Right.
They're going to take this power from New York, bring it over to Vermont, combine it with power coming down from Hydro-Quebec, and ship it south.
Where is it connecting is this going to connect where the Hydro-Quebec stuff comes out of the lake?
No, it's way up north.
Oh, it's way up north.
Yeah,
okay.
I think, the northern New York-Vermont border runs down the middle of the lake.
Right.
This HVDC, high voltage DC system, would run from the New York Power Authority's Plattsburgh substation to Vermont Electric Power Company's New Haven substation in Addison County.
Okay.
So it's way up north.
Yeah.
The New York portion of the project includes 6.7 miles of buried HVDC cable from a converter station to the shoreline of Lake Champlain, and about 4.9 miles underwater on the New York side of Lake Champlain. And in the Vermont section, there's an additional 35 miles of underwater cable. Then it's a converter station and 13 miles of buried line to the New Haven substation. So this by itself is pretty significant.
This is significant. 400 megawatts is about 2/3 of what Vermont needs to be.
Well, this
power.
really isn't for Vermont.
Yeah.
A
lot of this is going to go.
This is going to go south. Connecticut needs a lot right now.
That's right.
Probably a prime market.
They're looking at this as a way of they're looking at this as a way of just moving that power out of New York and into.
Well, it's all interconnected. It's all tied together. If Vermont needs it, Vermont's got it.
Yeah.
You might almost say we got first dibs at it.
Well, sort of, yeah. But, I would like to see Vermont be completely energy independent. And I'd like to see every state be completely energy independent. They could send this stuff to New York City. I mean, why shouldn't they do that? They could use it as part of a plan to close down from Indian Point.
I hope it's closed before they develop before any of this gets done.
Well, you never can tell. I saw another announcement of another nuclear plant possibly being closed this morning. And
I know that the governor is very much down on Indian Point, and for very valid reasons.
It's too close to New York City.
There's too damn many people living in its periphery.
Yeah, if you have an accident in Indian Point, you could have 40 million people having to evacuate.
I'm going to say 50.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people
how long would it take to evacuate New York City?
It can't be done.
Well, New York City's got 8 million people or however many in it. Look at what happened in Alberta. They had to evacuate 88,000 people, and they had an absolute nightmare. 25,000 people had to be taken out from north of the city without an airport. Mm-hmm. So let's move on, Tom.
Well, okay. This is Orange County. This is back. We're back in New York, but different part of New York.
Yes, we're back in New York, and this
Orange County power plant work may be stalled by a federal probe.
Oh man!
Somebody had their finger in a cookie jar.
Yeah, Newsday. Developers of a $900 million upstate New York gas-fired power plant are at the center of a federal probe into allegations of improper lobbying and conflicts of interest. They had sought and received important state approvals to fast-track the plant. Now progress could be grinding to a halt And they did not say, by the way, why don't you put the picture of the...
Yeah, we got a picture, don't we?
Yeah.
Get the picture
They
up.
did not say that this plant was a natural gas plant. I looked at
It is a natural
gas plant. I looked at that and said, you know, that reading this thing, it almost sounded, because they used the initials CPV, which sounds like concentrating photovoltaic, but this plant is clearly a thermal plant, and so I went further, and yeah, it is natural gas.
Well, it's kind of interesting because it's in the middle of nowhere. Orange County is north of New York City.
Yeah.
The only significant town in Orange County is Kingston.
Yeah.
And that's on a river.
Yeah.
This is in the middle of that county. It's about 10 miles from Middletown. And it's absolutely in the middle of nowhere. This is all farm country.
Yep. Okay.
Why they want it there, I don't know, but I'm sure.
Well, you know, it's not that far from Indian Point, right?
It's not close.
It's not close?
It's not close at all.
I misunderstood then. Okay, should we go on? We've got
I'm trying to think. There's nothing much else we can talk about this of any interest. So let's move on.
Then our next piece is from CTV News. Whoa! What is going on there?
Well, we're back to
Fort McMurray. Yeah, this is our closing thing on Fort McMurray, and that is a picture of the evacuation.
The first escorted media tour of the fire-ravaged city. They hired a couple of buses and they brought a bunch of reporters around. And the reporters are all, it's an interesting article.
It's an interesting article. You can look it up. Yep.
But this is one of the most scary ones. That's the convoy there.
That is a convoy. Worried evacuees, desperate for a glimpse of their streets and neighborhoods, got their first authorized peek inside the city, ravaged by wildfire a week ago. In all, 2,400 structures were destroyed, but another 25,000 buildings, along with hope for the future, remain. Most people who evacuated had no damage to their homes, aside from the fact that they lost the content of their refrigerators.
Yeah.
And if they have bad weather after this, they could have broken pipes from freezing because, you know, it's northern Alberta. It could still freeze hard up there. But they had 25,000 people fled north, and they had to be evacuated by air without an airfield, which meant, I think, most of them were taken out by helicopter, but I may be wrong. I know that there were fixed-wing aircraft involved because I read it.
Well, there's probably a lot of landing strips up there. You can't get around up there without a car.
There's oil fields.
I mean, with a car. Everything's too far apart.
Yeah, and I read one article in which they said the pilots of some of these commercial planes just kind of bent the rules a little bit and said, "That's okay, bring your cat."
Good for them.
But you know, this is appalling, and the pictures, the videos online, people driving in stop and go traffic. Stop and go, bumper to bumper. Move 20 feet, move another 20 feet, with fire just off the road on the right side and fire approaching the road on the left side. And sparks flying and flames overhead, and this was a nightmare, and you know.
Kind of scary.
This is about as scary as it gets. Yeah, this is about as scary, and nobody died of fire. This is really exemplary in terms of what they did. But the people, you talked about a video of a fire raging through a house and the lights were on. I saw that same video, I think, but the one that I saw, if it's the same or not.
There's a fish tank in the room.
That's right. Yeah. The people just ran out of the place. They left their lights on. Yep. They just ran out of the place, but they had a surveillance camera that was tied to their cell phones. They could watch this, and they could watch the fire going through their house until, of course, everything shut down.
That's how they recorded it.
That's how they recorded it. And it was, and they left the house, according to the thing that I read, 2 minutes before the house caught on fire.
Wow.
Whew. And of course, with one firefighter for every 16 buildings burned down, you don't have much choice but to leave. And it's going to be months before these people get back. Even though most of the buildings are there, they don't have any water. They don't have any electricity. They don't have any.
Well, it's going to be months before they recover.
Yeah.
Months after the fire's out that they recover.
Well, the
Probably
fire.
a year.
The fire is going to be going. As I said, it may be going till fall.
It could be.
You know, I mean, if you look at the map of where the fire is right now, it has spread in about 5 different directions, which means that no matter which way the wind blows, it's blowing part of that fire into forests.
And the conditions that permitted it to happen are still there.
That's right.
So it could happen in other places.
That's right.
Wow.
Now and it will. They're saying that it's going to go into. It's in Alberta. It's what's east of Alberta, Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan.
Yeah. It's going to reach. It's going to reach Saskatchewan.
Very well.
So you know, this thing is
so
huge.
Let's move back home.
Move back home.
New
PV
solar
Magazine. I'm sorry. Go ahead. PV Magazine.
New solar financing program offered for Vermont homes, businesses, and non-profits.
Yeah, this is worth looking up.
This is a good thing.
Vermont-based manufacturer All Earth Renewables announced a new program for Vermont homeowners, small businesses, and nonprofits to go solar for just $1,000, which can be applied to purchasing solar system after 5 years. Customers will see immediate decrease in the electric bill as they pay for the system. So if you're in Vermont and you are interested in that, look them up online. We've got 2 more items here, Tom, and we've only got about 5 minutes to do them. Yep.
Well, almost everything you know about climate change solutions is outdated.
This is an opinion piece. First, climate science and climate politics have been moving quickly to broad consensus. Second, technology for key climate solutions has become very affordable. Third, the media is largely clueless. This is from Think Progress. So, yeah. I don't know that we have to spend any time on that one. It says it all, unless you've got something to say.
I'm trying to figure, I got a lot here, but I'm trying to condense it down in a couple of seconds. And
yeah.
I can't. It's going to be, we don't have enough time to
Let's go to the next one. This is from the telegraph.co.uk,
which is
here. Not the Telegraph, telegraph.co.uk.
There's
the picture.
There we go.
No, this is not Fort McMurray that you see coming up. This is the picture of coal-burning power plant in the UK. And what's the title here?
Britain gets no power from coal for the first time on record.
Britain generated no electricity from coal on Tuesday for what is believed to be the first time since the 19th century, in a major milestone in the decline of the polluting power source.
It's 1882 we're talking about.
Wow. National Grid confirmed that none of Britain's coal stations were running between midnight and 4 a.m. Some of them are back online, but the last one in Scotland has shut down. And the coal mines in all of the UK have shut down. Coal mines used to be a large part of the...
It was a very big part, yeah.
Yeah, a big part of the economy of Wales. And so, you know, there you have it. And this is a decline which is going to be met elsewhere in the world.
Well, the UK government has already announced plans to phase coal out entirely by 2025.
I think they're going to have this out long
Probably before that. And 2025 isn't that far in the future.
No, and the Chinese have, you know, they said we've got a certain number, I forget the number, of power plants that we're gonna put online. They said that when they were negotiating with President Obama over, you know, the climate targets, and then we had an agreement in which they said they would start rolling back their carbon emissions by 2035, and then it turned out that they should have known that they were already rolling them back. I think they were probably laughing up their sleeves during this thing. But they had a number of power plants they wanted to put online. The central government has told the provinces no more, many of them, no more coal-burning power plants. And the provinces had to stop construction. And they are closing power plants at a rate of almost 3 a day for this year.
Really?
1,000 power plants. Chris, I have no idea how big these plants are. Some of them might be very, very small.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they're talking about closing 1,000 power plants. There are children in China who never see a blue sky.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
This is sad.
I'm looking at that picture there, and it's really not what it appears to be.
What is it?
It looks like a fire.
It looks like a fire.
And it's really a sunset.
Or sunrise.
Or sunrise.
If you look at the,
and what you're looking at mostly there is not pollution, it's cooling
steam.
water. It's steam.
Click that back so people can see.
Want to see the picture again?
Yeah, you can see the steam, and if you look at the cooling tower on the right, and you look closely, you can see the disk of the sun looks like it's popping out of that cooling tower.
If you look all the way to the left, there is a chimney there. And if you look at the top of that chimney, there is stuff coming out of it.
But you can't really see it clearly.
You can't see it, but it is bad stuff. That's the bad stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff you're seeing in the picture is just water vapor.
Well, we should probably say goodbye, Tom.
Well, it's about that time, isn't it?
It is. We are about to say goodbye.
So I generally raise my hand and wave.
Goodbye. Have a perfectly lovely week. Bye-bye.
Strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.